The industrial tradition of Sabadell began in the first third of the 16th century in the textile sector and, above all, in the woolen textile. This sector evolved easily with the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century and then initiated a diversification process that expanded towards metallurgy, chemicals, and other productive sectors. At present, the degree of computer development places Sabadell once again in the lead of the industrial activities. The level of labor qualification and specification and the solidity of its own financial organizations, Banc i Caixa d'Estalvis de Sabadell, have been basic factors of its consolidation as an industrial city. The existence of a sufficient offer of industrial soil and the privileged geographic location of the city convert Sabadell in the ideal center for establishing new industries. Located at the foot of a crossroads of highways that connect France with the coast and Barcelona with Terrassa towards the El Cadí and Toulouse, Sabadell also has 3 train stations of the national network and 2 of the regional network. An airport and heliport of its own complete its communication network. At the same time, its proximity to Barcelona, about 32 miles, bestows it with the elements of a large city, such as access to the international airport and port without having to endure the congestion of a large city. At the interior slope of the coastal range and surrounded by mountains, Sabadell appears as the center of a prosperous area. The history and personality of the city have marked peculiar ways of life and customs that, despite the heavy burden of industrialization, have allowed ensuring the standard of living levels. The almost 200,000 inhabitants that presently live in Sabadell form a diverse community, which is a result of 2 essential factors: human mobility derived from its geographic location and the strong migratory currents originated by industrial development. We have learned the remote history of the plain of Sabadell from the Iberian and Roman discoveries found in the ancient Arraona and its surrounding area. There are also numerous signs of its long agricultural stage. This traditional agriculture still exists, even today, in a few places, in harmony with the most sophisticated industrial activities. The moderate climate, an average of 15 degrees during the entire year, favors balanced living habits and an expressive and open frame of mind. The values of work and sports, wisely alternated, have always been the motivating forces of the vital activity that the inhabitants of Sabadell deploy in all fields. But also research, the arts, and the most diverse cultural manifestations have a considerable effect on the restlessness that characterize the social life of the city. As Josep Pla said, with the exception of Barcelona, in Catalonia there is no other city closer to life, considered as a struggle, that can be compared to Sabadell. This is what mainly gives this city an interest. This interest is very great. It is a sleepless city, a force in constant movement, marvelously rich in ambition, competitiveness, creative impulse, and initiative. In that aspect, it seems to have an inexhaustible source of great fertility. As far as housing is concerned, Sabadell has maintained, to date, its preference for horizontal construction. Since ancient times, the one-family houses, popularly known as English houses, have been preserved and reformed. A ground floor, 1 or 2 stories, not much of a facade, and a long patio. Many of the present constructions are also inspired on this type of housing, thus avoiding the typical urbanistic congestions of industrial cities. At a few minutes from work, and for those who prefer a residence on the outskirts of the city, there are numerous and completely urbanized areas where one can enjoy great peace and quiet. Not very far from the urban nucleus, and in some of the mountain ranges that surround it, amongst extensive forests, you can delight to the pleasure of having a summer or weekend cottage. Nevertheless, the city itself also has different park areas such as La Salut, Can Déu, Sant Oleguer, Taulí, or El Parc de Catalunya, presently being constructed, that offer the city dweller the opportunity for long walks, games, and recreation. At dawn on any day of the week, the city begins its habitual painstaking skills. The traffic of men and women on their way to the factories, the shops and services offers an image that is quite characteristic of Sabadell. For the younger set, the day also begins with revelry. With respect to education, Sabadell has a network of private schools and 35 public grade schools, equally distributed throughout the urban nucleus, that guarantee total schooling. The modern pedagogic techniques applied these past years offer a quality education. High school studies are covered by 4 institutes and 3 professional training schools, some of which are on the outskirts of the city. The School of Computer Studies, to be created soon, along with the higher schools of managerial sciences and architecture, constitute an offer to the city with regard to higher studies. Any other type of university studies can be carried out at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, located at 6 miles from Sabadell. Far away from the classrooms, the morning continues its course. At this time of day, the city rhythm reaches its highest rates, and Sabadell shows its great vitality. The constant movement of persons and commodities, the intensity of economic labor and administrative negotiations make evident the specific weight of Sabadell as a nerve center of an ample area of Barcelona's industrial belt. This is also the time of day for shopping. The city has a decentralized network of 6 municipal food markets where you can find all sorts of first-quality food products. For those who prefer to buy in a supermarket or in the traditional grocery stores, they can do so easily at any given point within the urban nucleus or its surroundings. Such an important aspect as is sanitation and social services is highly covered by both the number of beds available and the clinical specialties. The Hospital Association that encompasses the greater part of the city's health centers and the network of first aid centers ensures undiscriminated social health aid in Sabadell and its surrounding area. After work, it is necessary to recover one's strength, and to do this there is nothing more natural than going into one of the numerous restaurants that offer from the traditional economic menu to the most exquisite specialties. And a few hours later, the inhabitant of Sabadell frequently dedicates his time to the most diverse activities oriented towards his physical, intellectual, and artistic education. With regard to physical education, the city offers multiple possibilities of practicing sports, either within the framework of the diverse municipal facilities or any of the numerous sports clubs or centers. We could say that if in Sabadell sports has become a daily activity for the majority of its inhabitants, this is due, above all, to a commanding desire to compensate the intensity of their work, which is a common characteristic of all industrial cities. The intellectual and artistic restlessness is expressed through the massive flows to the libraries of the city and to the artistic training centers. Therefore, it is not a coincidence that Sabadell be the birthplace of outstanding figures in literature and arts in Catalonia. In a permanent manner, a group of cultural units such as the Art Museum, the Museum of History, the Municipal Record Office, and the Institute of Paleontology contain the cultural heritage of the city and can always be consulted by any citizen. At nightfall, and after all shopping is over, a pleasant stroll can end with a visit to an art gallery or with a refreshment or a drink on the terrace of the bars or cafeterias. The protagonism of the night begins. The more Sybarites can choose a fine dinner a la carte in a peaceful and pleasant atmosphere. Those who are in a hurry to get to the cinema or the theater can decide on a lighter meal. Another quaintness of Sabadell is its great fondness for the cinema. This explains why the city has its own film library and cinema club. Music, the opera, and the theater are activities greatly supported by the public and have an interesting program throughout the entire year in the diverse auditoriums of the city. The municipal theatre season is specially outstanding. Those who enjoy the nightlife can continue their entertainment at any of the night spots, whether in bars, pubs, nightclubs, or discotheques, and see the evening off with a drink. When the weekend arrives, time off begins, free from obligations and headaches, and the city changes. Everyone attempts to make use of this time in accordance with their preferences, and the area of Sabadell is specially endowed to satisfy these. The city itself offers sufficient opportunities to entertain oneself or participate in the varied activities that habitually occupy the streets. Such is the case of the great participation year after year in the festivities of the city, such as la Plec de la Salut, la Diada de Sant Jordi, or the Festa Major. On the other hand, the area possesses its own attractions, both for those who love the mountains, as well as the admirers of natural scenes, or those who prefer to practice sports. The ideal location of Sabadell allows traveling quickly to all those points of the country that offer natural attractions and to take up the seasonal sports.